two stories, half a world away, driving U.S. markets and your money right now. You need to watch this hour because just over an hour ago, the White House said it'll blow through yet another deadline in the nuclear talks with Iran, citing, quote, genuine progress, but that, quote, sticking points remain. A 6 p.m. Eastern deadline no longer intact for the U.S. and 5 other world powers to come to that agreement with Iran over the nuclear weapons program. Reports earlier suggested that a deal could be imminent and would be announced as early as tonight, but now there will be an 18th straight day of negotiations. So what reacted? Oil markets, originally in descent, then reversing course, moving higher, and now fading again as the nuclear deal faded itself this evening. And a potential deal in Greece overnight. This is really what's moving the global markets higher at the moment. We are at the highs of the session or close to them for most of the major indices. Greece's Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras now back in Athens, faced with a very Leviathan task of selling tougher austerity measures to his own people, the same citizens who he told to outright reject a weaker plan just 9 days ago. There is a live picture of Parliament at the moment, people milling around watching. As they know, Greek Parliament must approve what they are given by Wednesday. Before creditors will move forward on a third bailout package, $95 billion in cash is the number. That's what's needed to support and reopen the banks. We're less than an hour from the closing bell. You're making money if you're in stocks right now, so let's start the countdown. Oh, boy. So the latest breaking news is that Iran's foreign minister says no deal tonight. He indicated that from a hotel balcony in Vienna an hour ago to reporters who were standing below waiting to hear. Now, Iran's Mohammad Javad Zarif tweeting, it still shows hope. If Iran deal reached, this is what he's saying in the tweet, triumph of diplomacy means we all will have won when we all could have lost. Plain and simple, no spin needed, end quote. But not everybody feels that all have won in the potential Iranian nuclear deal. Here is what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had to say over the weekend about the talks in Vienna. Quote, in Vienna, world powers concede more and more to Iran. In Tehran, demonstrators burn American and Israeli flags. You know what? That's true. They were burning a lot of flags. So what is the hangup that's causing talks to likely extend through tomorrow? Well, Iran and the 6 major world powers, the P5+1, have hit a snag over not nuclear arms, but plain vanilla conventional arms and missiles. The embargo Iran wants lifted. So will another few hours help clear the way for this historic deal? And what's the next step once a deal is made? We bring in former CIA Director Ambassador James Woolsey, along with former Mayor of Shiloh, Israel, David Rubin. Welcome to you both. Ambassador, I will start with you. Again, we go into an 18th straight day. Will there be a deal on Wednesday? And that's a critical deadline.
Well, it's only a critical deadline if you think an agreement would be a good idea. I think anything headed in the direction that this agreement appears to be is up there in a league with Chamberlain's concession to give the Germans Czechoslovakia at Munich in 1938. It's really in the first rank of modern appeasement. And I very much would like to see, in the interests of peace and security, this deal fail.
Well, we haven't seen the details of the deal, but here's what we are hearing, and I'm sure they're the same things that are really agitating you and a lot of people who are against this. Number one, no surprise inspections, which kind of made me laugh. It's like telling kids in a dorm room, we're going to inspect at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, so make sure everything's put away or cleaned or hidden. You know, that becomes an issue. But this sticking point about lifting the arms embargo for conventional arms, are these the two things that bother you the most, or is there something else, Ambassador?
Well, letting Iran have production capacity and an industrial base for nuclear weapons is the first and worst. They were going to have essentially none 2 years ago at the time the interim agreement was signed, and that was the American position. And then we began caving right and left. Now they're going to have thousands of centrifuges. It's kind of just a question of how we figure out when they may turn them on. So I think the conventional weapons issue is an important one because Iran is not just sending nuclear materials and infrastructure and so forth and working on it with like-minded states like North Korea. It is also moving into a world in which it's supplying the Houthis in Yemen,
Sure.
supplying the Hezbollah, and all with conventional weapons. So we are tipping them $150 billion practically in order to increase their ability to give conventional weapons to terrorists. They're the leading terrorist state in the world.
Mayor Rubin, that touches a nerve, I'm sure, with Israelis who have been able to trace weapons shipments that they've intercepted with the Israeli Navy in the past, indirectly through back to Iran. And so, you look at that and you say, well, these guys are getting involved in regional conflicts. They have helped Hezbollah. They have certainly been giving weapons in certain conflicts in Gaza. So if you were to accept the fact that there is going to be an agreement, what is the one thing you would like to see make sure that is not in there?
Well, first of all, I think that one thing that strikes me about this agreement is that there are already celebrations in Iran. They're already celebrating in the street. The politicians are making boasting speeches, proclaiming that an agreement is at hand. Meanwhile, in Israel, you have almost across the board opposition to this agreement right across the political spectrum. And in the United States, Congress is up in arms already, very upset about this agreement and the details that are coming out.
Well,
I think that alone says it all.
Well, the issue with Congress, let me just jump in here, is that Congress gets to review this for 30 days. But if the deadline blasts through and is not done by Wednesday, I guess that period grows to 60 days, which, of course, will entail much more scrutiny, correct? And what would you say to Congress right now if they could hear from David Rubin, the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, who's also a victim of terrorism?
Well, I think they need to pay attention to who they are making this agreement with. I don't think that Iran can be trusted in any way. And I think there is too much in this agreement, way too much in this agreement, that says that we're relying on the Iranians to be trustworthy. If you cannot go in and have surprise inspections of their nuclear facilities, when everyone knows that they're working feverishly on a nuclear weapons program, then I think that's a big problem.
Ambassador
I don't
Woolsey,
think that it can be trusted. I don't think the Iranians can be trusted.
Ambassador Woolsey, Israel's defense minister Moshe Ayalon said this deal will force Israel to defend itself by itself. Is that a little too dramatic? You know, the Americans have always said they will continue to help and defend Israel.
Well, I don't think if I were an Israeli, I would trust the Obama administration to defend me, at least not with anything other than some occasional words. I think that it is a very dangerous and difficult situation, and the Israelis may have to take action of some sort based on their own decision. I think that it's really an extraordinarily bad situation. We are on the verge of signing one of the 2 or 3 worst international agreements of modern times.
Ambassador James Woolsey, former director of the CIA, speaking with us in a Fox Business exclusive, along with former Shiloh Mayor David Rubin. Thank you both very much.